I'm not happy.
I don't need Elizabeth Warren or the government giving away my money.
Calling Mike Bloomberg an oligarch has implications in this country that I think are unfair and unreasonable.
I care. That's it.
Makes you think of some rich person who got their money off of oil in Russia, who's taking advantage of a broken and dysfunctional system.
Bernie Sanders saying, the country's corrupt, our system's corrupt. Be careful about that language, Bernie. You know, be careful.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
It's like a shark, NATO, except with poop.
I like my meat tight. Tighten up my meat.
Not in the nation. Waldorf Nation, hey everybody, welcome to the show. It's Tuesday. Hello and welcome. Good to see all of you here today. We're gonna have a good show. We're going to have a great show, actually. It's going to be fantastic. I'm going to talk about John Boehner. John Boehner, the Boehner's back. Kind of. The Boehner is back, and he's got a rather limp critique of Donald Trump. Fantastic. Audio is also back today. Yes. I've been working hard to restore audio goodness. And so we've got that fun stuff. We're also going to talk about how dumb MAGA rioters are. I know it's a constant theme in the show, but man, let me tell you, they are really special stupid. Just a special kind of dipshit. So I'm going to talk about that. We also have MyPillow guy. He's got a new site out for free speech, everybody. So we're going to have to sign up and then immediately break TOS. That'll be so much fun. Do it. All right. And then we've got more somber news, of course. I'm going to talk about in depth, in detail, how Amazon, the different tools Amazon brought to bear to defeat the Bessemer union attempt. So, that's important stuff. What tools they use? How do we fight back? What needs to change for us to be able to actually have a labor movement in this country? We got to get labor to come back. We need it. We need unions. We need labor power. We need to be able to organize for general strikes and all that stuff. I'm just wearing my Dunder Mifflin shirt. Why am I using a lavender light? Because it looks nice. It looks very nice. It softens me. It softens the mood so that I can deliver crushing news every day. So, but at least it's easy on the eyes. Yes. All right. Anyway, so let's dive in. Oh, that was a large spike. Let's dive into this, and let's start out with John Boehner. Before I do, please like and share the stream. Very important that you do so. All right, helps out greatly, wonderfully. By the way, if you want to help with the show, because we're getting crushed right now. Honestly, when it comes to video views, we've seen a massive decrease in views, massive decrease in revenue. It's almost as if YouTube is basically crushing independent voices again. Yeah, weird how that works out. And so, they're not a fan of us, apparently over on YouTube. So we need to continue to like and share the stream. Sign up to help us, patreon.com/whatever. Everybody's getting crushed on YouTube, not just independent news. Yeah, the algorithm comes in waves, my friend. And the algorithm has crashed against us, and we are having a very, very difficult time right now. So, on Twitch, if you're interested, you can go over to our Twitch or watch us on Facebook Live as well. All that stuff. Yeah, helps us. And we need the help. We absolutely need the help. So, all right. Anyway, status quo is being decimated. I know I've seen that. Just absolutely, like, not just demonetized, but they've been, they've had hits against their channel, strikes against their channel. I've talked about the Surfs before. Our friends over at the Surfs TV, they're on Twitch or on YouTube. Check them out. Lance Super Based. He got hit and nearly got his channel removed for doing documentaries on the right wing. So they're shutting, they're going after them for spreading disinformation by just showing interviews. Same thing with Status Quo. So there are a lot of issues going on here. Yes, partly could be Mithril that some people are feeling less in need of news. True. There is always that somewhat small decline. But at the same time, I gotta let you all know that our metrics in January, February were fantastic. And actually, somehow during those months, I was actually able to avoid what was happening to a lot of other channels, but it has caught up to me. The wave has finally hit me, and so I think it's algorithm related mostly. And so, help out your favorite creators. It doesn't necessarily have to be me, although it does help. But help out the channels that you want to see continue to thrive through this tough time. Again, Humanist Report, Ring of Fire, or Farron Cousins, David Dole, Rational National, wherever you want to go, or the smaller creators as well need a lot of help. Patreon, by the way, you can check out on the ticker below is all the links to my different socials, and reminders to hit the like button. Patreon.com/Jeff Waldorf is a way to sign up for our Patreon to support us without having to give YouTube a share, without having to give Jeff Bezos a share, or anything like that of your money. So those are excellent resources and ways to help. Becoming a channel member, thank you to the 2 new channel members that have signed up as well. So, yeah, all different ways to help us. Jesse Dollamore talked about a right-wing a-hole, got demonetized. It's happening all the time. It does happen all the time. I've had many of my videos demonetized as of late as well. So they're cracking down. Everybody, cracking down. All right. Anyway, let's dive in here. It appears that former Republican House Speaker John Boehner is selling a book. As one, does when they're selling a book, they decide to go on multiple media outlets to do a promotion, a book tour, essentially. So now in his book, he goes after the Republican Party. Oh, interesting. Okay, so he's got some critiques of the Republican Party. Also had some critiques of former President Donald Trump. So I want to read some of that to you. Now he writes that Trump incited that bloody insurrection for nothing more than selfish reasons, perpetuated by the bullshit he'd been shoveling since he lost a fair election the previous November. So now John Boehner's always been, he's always been somebody who speaks his mind. Okay, I don't agree with John Boehner a lot. I think he's an incredibly corrupt individual. But if it's one thing, it's he doesn't hold back when he's being honest about something. So very, very tough words. Those words, of course, will not help him with MAGA world. Not that he cares, because he's retired. All right. However, during an interview, he did say something that was surprising to a lot of people. In a new interview with Time magazine, John Boehner admitted that despite the problems that he had with Donald Trump, he still ended up voting for him. Well, of course. He said, quote, "I voted for Donald Trump." No, why would you do that if you have very tough words for Trump and the fact that he did an insurrection? Even though the insurrection, of course, hadn't happened before the election, but he had been talking about, challenging it if he ended up losing and ginning up all this fears of voter fraud, and that, using that as basically a way to excuse what looked to have been a pretty bad election and ended up being a pretty bad election for Donald Trump. So anybody paying attention to the rhetoric, as someone like John Boehner admits that he has, you could see where this was headed. Nonetheless, he still casts his ballot for Donald Trump. So why? Well, there's a question. I already know the answer to this. He's a Republican. But I'll have him answer that, okay? He said, "I thought that his policies, by and large, mirrored the policies that I believed in. I thought the choices for the Supreme Court were top-notch. At the end of the day, who gets nominated to the federal courts is really the most important thing a president does." Well, I mean, look, there it is. It's a big shocker, right? A Republican votes for a Republican. I'm not exactly surprised. I don't really understand why anybody would think that he would have done anything differently. Honestly. Sure, yeah, he criticizes some members of the party, but at the same time, that doesn't mean he's going to vote for Joe Biden or like a third party candidate. That's not what's going to happen, okay? Generally, most people tend to fall into two camps. Voting for Democrats, voting for Republicans. There are many different reasons for that. But generally, again, those are the two major parties, and our system is set up for two major parties. I want to change that. I want a more parliamentary system. I want something that allows for more choice and flexibility, and being able to rebuke the two major parties. But we don't live in that system, and I would be, so far I haven't really seen a plan on how to actually make something like that happen. Make a third party's viable in our current system, to change the system to allow for third-party votes. But anyway, that's a little bit of a tangent. I'm not really interested in going into that down that road at this point, okay? Back to Boehner, right? So now he's been critical of members of the party. In fact, he's got a simmering hatred for none other than Ted Cruz, the human wax figure. Fun. He also he basically called Ted Cruz, quote, "Lucifer in the flesh." Interesting. I tend to call him dime store Wolverine. It's Wolverine, but if you order him off Wish and doesn't actually have any powers other than to creep you out. He also had criticism for Jim Jordan, saying that he's a, quote, "political terrorist." Fun times. And speaking of actual terrorism, he said this about the January 6th Capitol riot. Quote, "I once said the party of Lincoln and Reagan is off taking a nap. That nap has become a nightmare for our nation. The GOP must awaken. The invasion of our capital by a mob, incited by lies from some entrusted with power," like basically the entire Republican Party, "incited by lies from some entrusted with power, is a disgrace to all who sacrificed to build our republic." No. The Capitol riot is a direct result of Republican ideology. This is the natural progression of the conservative movement, of the modern conservative movement. Basically, what politicians like Boehner had done is help create these conditions by helping to create a media bubble and perpetuate this with Fox News, right-wing hate radio, and eventually leading to people like Steven Crowder. You guys fostered that, you nurtured that, and when you had a chance to do something, to speak out against that, and to debunk some of the lies, well, you didn't do that. You made your money, you corrupt son of a bitch. That's it. And the Republican Party helped create this massive wealth and inequality. Busted unions, they let corporations run away with basically everything, control the government, and then use that to feed into the hatred of immigrants and black people in order to get votes. They did the Southern strategy, all of that stuff. And once the people caught on to the damage that you've done to your country, guess what? You left it for someone else to clean up while you cashed out. And it's the same thing with Paul Ryan. Paul Ryan also cashed out. That's it. That's all they did. Now, he continues. I don't think it was just about him showing up at a rally on January 6th. The comments that were made all summer about the election was going to be stolen from him and all the follow-up noise that occurred after the election, I kept looking for the facts. Well, there were no facts. The Republican Party, okay, here's a fact. The Republican Party doesn't want you to vote. They just don't. They don't want people to vote. In fact, for decades, their entire goal was to disenfranchise as many people as possible that were never going to vote for Republican. Mainly people of color, people, in urban areas, people in the cities, students. Those are the people, Democrats, essentially. They don't want people to vote. The less people vote, the more they win. How many times do I have to show you that video of the godfather of the modern conservative movement basically going complete mask off and saying, I don't want people to vote? Because there it is. Now, if you're black, they remove your polling stations. They're gerrymandering the districts. They're putting out voter ID laws. And to justify the laws, they're going to lie about voter fraud. They're going to make up this entire thing about massive voter fraud. And that's it. That's what they do. And guess what? Donald Trump, he glommed onto that gigantic lie that was already there and basically used that to soothe his fragile little ego after he lost the election. And that's it. Now, if Republican voters weren't already primed to believe in the disinformation put out by Fox News and living in that complete different conservative bubble, if they weren't already primed to believe that there was massive voter fraud that doesn't actually exist, I highly doubt that half the Republican Party would believe that Joe Biden isn't the actual president. They would believe that, they wouldn't believe that Donald Trump is still really the president and that he got cheated out of his election somehow because of massive voter fraud. But look, maybe not. I mean, the fact is we are dealing with a charismatic cult leader in Trump. But the way for Trump was paved by people like Mitch McConnell and John Boehner. And yet somehow John Boehner is surprised about all this. In fact, he said, what struck me, especially after the election, was here's all these people loyal to Donald Trump, and he abused them. He stepped all over their loyalty to him by continuing to say things that just weren't true. Now, what strikes me is, why are you actually surprised? Considering how Republicans lie to their voters. I mean, they lie about the wealth trickling down. They lie about immigrants. They lie about Middle Eastern countries in order to start disastrous wars. They lie about being against corruption. And I'm not saying that, the Democrats also haven't lied on some of those terms as well. It's true. The level of corruption, however, in the Republican Party, I think, is pretty bad. John Boehner himself used to hand out tobacco checks on the House floor. And that's it. And would also publicly help them to deny that cigarettes cause cancer. Total hypocrisy. He also pushed back against the idea that, climate change exists and we need to do something about it. John Boehner and House Republicans and the Republican Party really haven't accepted the idea that climate change is, that humans contribute to climate change, and that if we are to actually do something to mitigate climate change, we would have to transition off fossil fuels. So, and not to mention, by the way, okay. So now, what this is for John Boehner is this is a giant rehabilitation tour. And that's it. Not to mention a quick cash grab, okay? Who, ironically, despite being, an anti-pot crusader, is now in the legal cannabis business. How's that for irony? Fuck you, John Boehner. Fuck you. And the rest of the Republican Party, by the way, is at fault for helping build this. So fuck the rest of the Republican Party. Also fuck the Democrats for chasing the party to the right all these years. No, not interested. Now, social media had their say. I want to share a few tweets from them, okay? One person says, John Boehner voted for Trump in 2020 just because he makes entertaining digs at Ted Cruz or Fox News doesn't mean he's not as morally bankrupt and dangerous as those who is now attacking to rehab his image and profit from his career. True. Another person says, so I guess let's not pretend like Boehner was a victim or an unwitting participant of the policies of the new GOP. No matter how much he trashed Trump and said he was bad for the country, he still voted for him. True. Another person says, Boehner's book tour is nothing more than a self-aggrandizement with whitewashing pretenses. He not only nurtured the Tea Party, directly voted for the demagogue he claims to lead he claims he leads an unhinged cabal after the insanity of Trump's tenure. He is the worst. And then another person says, I don't even believe Boehner. Sounds like another grift play for his book. I voted for Trump, so my criticism of the Republicans is even more credible. My advice, don't buy this asshole's book. Don't rehabilitate him. Republicans don't deserve rehabilitation. And whatever you do, don't help them with that. They all contributed to this problem that we have because they all agree with him. And they all benefited from him. The only problem that they've never had with Trump is that he wasn't successful enough at ensuring the domination of Republican right-wing policies. All right. Go to MAGA rioters. Those guys are fun. When the MAGA rioters invaded the Capitol building on January 6th, they were not exactly sending their best, and certainly not their brightest. A great new example is the case of a man who used prison-monitored communications to brag about how proud he was that he had taken part in this Capitol riot. And yet now that seems to contradict his earlier admission that, man, I feel really bad about this. Oh, great. Now, this is according to BuzzFeed News' Zoe Tillman. Prosecutors are urging the United States Court for the District of Columbia to keep MAGA rioter Ronald Sandlin detained because of messages that contradict his claims in court that he feels remorse for his actions. Interesting. Now, prosecutors showed that Sandlin, just one day after he described his actions on January 6th as shameful during a court hearing, sent a message to a fellow rioter in which he said he had a, quote, divine destiny and waxed nostalgically about the fact that we made history that day and the full implications of our actions have yet to be realized. And just 1 week before the court hearing in which he expressed remorse, Sandlin sent a message to his mother saying he was proud to call the other Capitol riot inmates housed in the D.C. jail my friends. We stood up for what we believed in and sacrificed. Prosecutors are arguing that this showed Sandlin's expressions of contrition are insincere and are asking the court to keep him in custody until this trial. Fun. So the obvious question is, how stupid is this man? I mean, seriously. Or maybe the right question here is, how stupid do they think we are? Do they think they can stroll into court, lie, and then not get punished? Come on. This is a great example of it's WAP. Except that it's not
wet ass P word.
No, it's white ass privilege. That's what it is. Funny enough, one of the things that goes along with white ass privilege is being a dipshit. How do you not know that communications in jail are monitored? How do you not know that? You think you can say anything without being listened in a jail? It's a jail. This isn't the Ritz-Carlton. All right? The important thing here, though, to realize is that obviously these people are not remorseful at all. No. The only thing that they feel bad about is that they had failed. And that's it. That's it. They did not overturn the election. And thank goodness for that. But they sure tried. And now they want us to buy the idea that, oh, no, we're real sorry about this. No, we're real sorry. You know, it's a good thing they were too dumb to take over and put a dictator into office, because we would be run by complete idiots. It's also a good thing that our system was, barely able to withstand it. This is the problem with the GOP now, okay? The Republican base has been absolutely radicalized by idiots, right? This is not a small problem. This is not an isolated case. Trump supporters and hard-right fanatics, they are radicalized. They are primed for violence. And we need to take them seriously. Because guess what? The only reason that they're sorry is because they got caught. And they got caught because they failed to turn this country into what they really wanted, a right-wing dictatorship. All right. I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We got the MyPillow guy, free speech. We got some free speech going on here. So we'll do that right after this break. Stay right here around the nation.
I'm sick of all these witches and warlocks.
There's some whores in this house.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the show. Around the Nation right here, Waldorf Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. The lighting makes me feel like I'm watching New York City public access TV from the 80s. Hey, I probably have the I have a lower budget than the public access TV. So there you go. It's funny because what I used before was just a green screen and just lighting. Like I'm trying to soften the mood, y'all. A mixed success. All right. So that said, we've got some super chats that I want to read. Also, I want to thank. Let's see. I want to thank Granite Dragon for gifting the tier 1 sub to Deb Diane. Awesome. Thank you for doing that. Supports the channel. And then I can't read the name who's said this, but keep finding Jeff, we need you. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. Star Trek's MAGA rioters made infamy on January 6th. It's true. And let's see. How do I feel about criticism of AOC the Squad coming from the left? So, this is an interesting nuanced discussion because what I see right now is a ton of toxicity online, and I really see the left kind of tearing itself apart. The always online left tearing itself apart, and so it's made social media, it's made engaging in these topics really toxic. And so, yes, I believe that criticism is fine when it's warranted. I don't think that any politician is above reproach, but I also believe that in some cases there are bad faith actors that are going out and doing unfair criticism. And look, here's the other thing about that, right? So there is different criticism. If you're somebody who's like borderline tanky, then yeah, I'm going to understand why you are going to not be happy with AOC or Bernie Sanders. Okay. Not left enough. Okay. Well, you're tanky. You're a Marxist Leninist. Of course they're not left enough for you. Okay, I get it. But if you're somebody who's understand that she is AOC's basically a soc dem, a social democrat. She's not a socialist. She's not a super leftist. If you are a super leftist, then you're not going to be happy with these people unless they go over to your position fully. And I don't necessarily see her doing that in some regards. Now, that said, if your criticism is, hey, look, she promised to do something, they promised to do something, they promised to stand up to the establishment, and they didn't do that, and that's fair criticism to say, hey, look, you're not doing what you ran on. Why should we continue to support you? And that's the question. And if the answer is, hey, look, we don't have that kind of leverage in Congress, elect more of us so that we have that power, so that we have that leverage. Okay, we could see that. I definitely could be swayed by that argument in some respect, because it's like, I get it. The power dynamics are definitely against you in this case. And I understand the need to build coalitions, and I need to understand, and I understand the need to temper your expectations. But there also does need to be some, I hate to say it, but they're like some sort of virtue signal, right? And the reason that I frame it in that way is because people need an affirmation that even though there's not a lot that you can do, that you're trying to do something, that you're trying, you're doing your best. And you could do that by, for example, trying to use your leverage on a vote. or to get a position, a committee assignment, something like that. And so I understand that criticism where they haven't seen her or members of the squad do something like that. Or when they try to, they try to get into these circles, which they are not welcome in when it comes to the establishment. You know what I'm saying? And so the recent Politico article, and understand that Politico's Establishment 101, and it really is in their favor to divide leftists. Okay? They put out this article that, well, AOC is cozying up to the establishment. And of course, what do you think is going to be the result of that article? She's going to lose a lot of support. At the same time, understandably, if she is trying to and using donations, political donations from people who don't expect her to hand that money over to, for example, people who are part of the centrist establishment, don't share her political views as a way of trying to get that inside support, then I can understand why people are mad about that, because that is their money that they donated to her to help other fellow progressives, but she's instead using it to help other establishment candidates that then will turn around and be embarrassed by the money and throw it back in her face. It's an incredibly unfortunate situation for everybody involved. All right. So there is, again, room for criticism, sure. And remember, she's a first-term congresswoman. She's going to F up a lot. Nobody's perfect. I still believe that her heart's in the right place. And I do think that there are bad actors on the left side that do make a lot of money basically going after her and other members of the squad. At the same time, I think that, I think she does need to realize that the establishment is never going to play nice with her. Even if she tries to help them financially, it's not going to work because they don't need her money. In fact, that embarrasses them when they get money from her. And so, they get money from corporate donors. She doesn't. She should probably focus on trying to support just leftists and more sock dem lefty candidates. So it makes me wonder if she's trying so hard to fit in that she's towing the Pelosi line. Perhaps. And maybe she sees that as a way of trying to create coalitions between the left and the centrists or the moderate Dems so that she can try to sneak in her agenda. Or maybe she just didn't think about it. I don't really think that she's a bad faith person, honestly. And there will be slips. There will be times where criticism is absolutely warranted. And I can understand why some people are cautious when it comes to her. But for me, I'm not going to stand her. I think that, again, she's not above reproach. But also, I don't believe that she's our enemy, and I don't believe that she's one of the only people standing between us and Medicare for all or anything like that. So I think criticism needs to be there when it's warranted, when it's fair. You've got to keep it fair, and those who are not might have an agenda. Thanks for such a nuanced answer. Because I try to deal in nuance, and there are a lot of people that don't. And understand that's probably why my show's not like super popular, because I deal with nuance, and I don't just air, the hottest hot takes of the day. You know what I'm saying? And that doesn't get you an audience. Nobody wants to hear. Well, you do. But that's why you're here. But a lot of people online don't want to hear the nuanced takes. They want to hear the hot take, and they want someone to be angry about, or someone to be angry too. They want to face for the things that are not going well, that are going wrong. The point of the Justice Times to be the left version of the Tea Party. Yeah, and and again, one of the criticisms that I think is fair is should be a little bit more aggressive. And because it seems like it doesn't seem to be working in our favor to work with the establishment. So anyway, let's move on. We got MyPillow guy. Others just want to hear Slay Queen all day. Yeah, I know. Again, I'm not gonna fall on that. I generally like her, but again, I think she could be a little bit more aggressive, in my opinion. But that's me. All right. Anyway, The Politics of Anger is a really good book about this phenomenon. I'll have to check it out, Pinko Diamond. The internet loves black and white. Subtlety is an art. True. By the way, a couple of super chats from Dango Bangle here. Says tankies are fascists, they're Nazis, they're far right ringers dressing up in silk aesthetics to fool the masses and implement far right policies. Seriously, no difference between Nazis and tankies to the current day. We know the moment China or Nether choose end state, the defenses come pouring in. Interesting. Again, I try to stay away from like the tankies. You know what I'm saying? Not really interested in that kind of thing. So no tankies, no fash. I'm actually so sock dems are really where the country is. That's the actual middle of this country. And so we need to get to where we're actually in the middle and have things like universal health care, things like that. The main thing is that we need to elect more like AOC. She's one of the not even 10 progressives out of 300 a-holes. She's outnumbered, hard for her to do what people want. Yeah, and of course our system is set up for gradual change. It sucks. Our system really is set up to be really exceptionally slow. Look at the Senate. If you want any proof that our system is set up for gradual change, look at how the Senate does, and look at how many tools they have to prevent sweeping things from getting passed. All right. Anyway, go to Ring of Fire for Farron's hot takes. Come for you for the chill. I am pretty chill. I gotta admit, I love Farron though. I gotta get him on the show again. I gotta get him on the stream. All right, I've been waiting long enough. Let's talk about the MyPillow guy. All right. MyPillow CEO Mike Lindell is launching a new social media platform. Another one, yes. Now, it is based on the pillars of free speech and expression. Ah, yes. That is, of course, unless you say swear.
All of the cancels of our First Amendment rights we're seeing going on right now, well, guess what? It's coming back. You're not going to have to worry about what you're saying and what's going and you worry about being able to speak out freely. And I do want to say one thing, that when you get in there on Thursday, I want you to look at our mission statement, because we went back and defined, we found from our founding fathers and the Supreme Court and stuff, what defines free speech. So you're not going to have to worry about people if they're on there. There's going to be a good reporting system, but you don't get to use the 4 swear words, the C word, the N word, the F word, or God's name in vain. You can't have free speech is not pornography. Free speech isn't I'm going to kill you.
Okay. Hey, unfettered free speech except for the words that I don't like. Interesting. Can't do the F word. But you could probably do the F slur because it's Mike Lindell. And he probably has a problem with the gays. Ironic. Very ironic. So what's funny about this is that Mike Lindell seems to be wanted to take a piece of some of this so-called cancel culture, okay? It's like, social media, Twitter kicked me off for lying about the election. I know, I'm just going to make my own. I'm going to make my own social media site with hookers and blackjack, except no hookers, no blackjack. We are a family establishment here. Okay, no N-word, no F-word. Hey, at least he's got some standards, right? All right, sure. But look, I just can't help but go back to the origins of actual cancel culture. Because cancel culture, they talk about this a lot. Okay? Cancel culture originally is anything that offends the right wing. Remember, it was right-wing politicians and activists that tried to cancel rap music. Remember how they tried to cancel rap? Oh, violent lyrics. Oh, terrible, terrible lyrics. Oh, my God. Oh, terrible. Not only that, but they slapped a parental advisory sticker on basically everything, just about anything. Rap music, video games, rock music. They tried to cancel Harry Potter. It's total hypocrisy. The right wing is all about cancel culture, which is really funny. Now, the right wing. Oh, by the way, things that they also canceled. People who spoke out against the Iraq War or Vietnam or any of the efforts to try to continue, people that speak out against any effort to try to continue the American empire. Cancel culture. That's real cancel culture. What's going on, to a large extent, actually is accountability. So if you're a racist, you're a sexist, you're a transphobe, you're going to get pushed back on your terrible ideas. And you're probably going to run afoul of some of these websites' TOS. Now, I think it's good to get pushed back, especially if you're like Nazi adjacent. That is not something that we should normalize in this country. And while there is a problem with cancel culture being weaponized by so-called bad actors to make things like criticizing the right-wing government of Israel or the milquetoastiness of certain black politicians into cancelable offenses, understand that your canceling, no matter what, really doesn't take away your free speech. All right? It is really, the whole point is to try to make you accountable for the things that you say or have said. And understand that in this issue of cancel culture, you also have to talk about culture of forgiveness. For example, if somebody says some things 5-10 years ago that were real cringe, not good, but they're a completely different person now, well, that's when you can be forgiven. But you have to, show that you're not that person anymore, and then you could be uncanceled. Okay. Now, that said, this is not to be confused with the actual cancel culture of right-wingers trying to take away or criminalize or delegitimize people for expressing themselves. Okay? And so conservatives, when they do stuff like this, and they have a long history of trying to do that, they have shown that they are actually the party of anti-free speech. And so that said, at least Lindell has some, standards banning the N-word and threats. So it is pretty clear that he's not trying to turn this into another Gab where you have Nazis that literally have taken over that site. The only problem is, how successful is this going to be for him? Remember, there's a lot of conservatives out there that are just really mad that they can't say the N-word. And that's their real issue with cancel culture. They want to threaten people. They want to see things like the N-word. And then, as a result, of course, they get kicked off social media. So they go and cry about how they've been canceled for clicks. And that's really it. This is the new right-wing grift. That's how they make a lot of money. And you see it all and over and over again. And so, as a result, I don't really think that Lindell's new grift is really going to appeal to that many people, because what usually happens in these news sites is, oh yeah, free speech, I'm going to go there. And then they get bored because they can't go troll and say horrible things to libs. Again, remember, this is all about the conservative movement, for regular people and influencers. It is all about owning the libs. And that's really it. So I don't think it's going to do very well, because most people who don't spout out the N-word and do blatant misogyny, they're not getting booted off Twitter, okay? The only ones who are spreading, disinformation, people like Mike Lindell, and all this will serve to do is just to create a very small echo chamber of election and vaccine conspiracy theories. That's it. Maybe Lindell can make a little bit of money off of it, maybe, but I doubt he'll make enough for, money off of it to serve as any sort of soft landing after he loses the $1.3 billion from Dominion, from that lawsuit. So good luck with that, Mike, with this whole thing. You're going to need it. Sad. All right. Let's go to Amazon. No, not the Amazon. Oh, you know what? I had one more just fun little video from Mike Lindell. I know you're dying to see it.
This platform, it's like a YouTube, Twitter combination. You've never seen anything like it. You're going to love it. You're going to have your own like YouTube channel, only that's your Twitter handle, or Twitter channel, so to speak.
Yeah. Oh, you've never seen that anything like that before. Yeah, I have. I've seen Twitter and I've seen YouTube. I've seen both of those things before. Ridiculous. Okay. I just had to point that out. All right. Whew. Now let's go to the Amazon. So a lot of us were pretty upset over the recent loss of the unionization effort in Bessemer, Alabama. So that's, of course, when Amazon defeated the push to unionize their warehouse workers. Now, we have some details into how nearly 1,800 workers at that plant were conned into voting against their best interests. So there's a mixture of different factors. One of them include time. And also, you have issues where you had Amazon that basically had so many advantages again compared to the union when it came to organizing. So I'm going to kind of break down what happened and some of the major factors involved and why the union effort had failed and some of what needs to be done in order to make a successful one. So this was written by in HuffPost by David Jameson, who spoke to a lot of people involved in this effort. One warehouse worker told him that near the end of the election that all the endorsements, all the political figures had came too late to make a difference because Amazon, turns out, started really, really early in their anti-unionization efforts. So now Amazon had been anticipating this. They had been, they had all the advantages. Amazon actually held anti-union meetings. They urged workers to vote as quickly as possible. And so when this ended up getting national media attention, you had a lot of people that had already cast their ballots without speaking to a union organizer whatsoever. And so they already had in their minds the propaganda from Amazon, especially when they harped on dues. So now, as an example, this particular worker did not have her first in-depth conversation with any sort of union organizer until after she had been forced to sit through several anti-union meetings ran by Amazon consultants. In fact, she said, quote, "You just can't escape it anywhere. Amazon just bulldozed." Jameson went on to interview about 11 warehouse workers and 7 organizers and union officials involved in the campaign. And so the reason, of course, this is important is because, we need to have the answer of how to fight back. And in order to figure out how to fight back, we need to look at the methods that they had used to be able to win. So now, for one, if you're going to unionize, you got to get out the message. Right now, company propaganda is incredibly effective. Not only that, but the company had so much power, so much money, which served as essentially a bullhorn. The company ended up having a billboard on the interstate. So that is anti-union. Now, another issue that was detailed in this report is the issue of turnover. And this actually worked in Amazon's favor and against the union. So if you have a high turnover of workers at this particular warehouse or whatever, the workers aren't necessarily going to be invested in a union push. And Amazon, at least this particular warehouse, had a turnover rate that was astronomical. It was over 100%. That's insane. Now, that doesn't mean 100% of the workforce gets replaced. What it means is that the number of workers who quit or get fired in a year ends up being greater than the average number of workers in that facility. So that's insane. Now, it also, again, works out in Amazon's favor if you want to crush unions, because the union must constantly generate new supporters from those to account for those who had been lost to the daily churn. In fact, RWDSU, the union that was supposed to represent the workers in Bessemer, their Mid-South Council president, Randy Hadley, told HuffPost the organizers assumed that they were losing about 60 signed union cards per week. You'll never deorganize a workplace that has 100% turnover, he said. You'll just chase your tail. So that's not good. Another thing that, of course, worked against him was the massive amounts of money and resources that Amazon brought to the fight. They used this money to hire union avoidance consultants. Now, these people, of course, specialize in persuading workers to vote against the union and coach supervisors on how to throttle the support. Amazon brought in at least 2 union avoidance consulting firms, according to disclosures filed with the Labor Department. They spent millions of dollars on this. One firm's filing said consultants would be paid $3,200 apiece per day to conduct meetings, with 3 names listed. $3,200 a day for union busting. Imagine if they instead used that to pay their workers. Jesus. Amazon also tapped the leading management side law firm Morgan Lewis to handle litigation before the labor board. And Adam Obernower, one of the RWDSU's organizers, called Amazon's union avoidance approach, quote, the platinum package. That's how much money they spent on this. Whereas, of course, the union doesn't have those types of resources. And not only that, but they don't have access to employees 24 hours a day. That's also one of the big problems in union organizing. Again, you still have to be able to have the communication channels to get out your message, to get out your talking points, to counter anti-union propaganda. And still, the advantages of the company are much, much more than any union could ever achieve. Now, for an example of their reach, Amazon had messaging throughout the warehouse, including in bathrooms, which is interesting because from a lot of the reports that we found from Amazon is that workers don't necessarily have time to visit the bathrooms. You know, the whole peeing in bottles thing and the pooping in bags, you know? So there's more. One of the most effective strategies was actually called the captive audience meetings, where attendance was mandatory. So you had to go. In order to keep your job, you had to go to this mandatory anti-union meeting. And of course, in those meetings, the highly paid consultants would talk about how bad the union was, and would, of course, say, though, well, what are we going to actually get from a union? I mean, they're going to take all this money. In fact, one worker said they were harping a lot on dues. They were saying the union's coming in, and the union is a business. That's not true. The money they make is going to be off of you. You're $9 a week. They're going to use that money to buy cars. But wait, but that's what you're doing. But you're taking the money. You're taking money that's supposed to go to you for your labor, and taking that money and basically funneling it to executives so that they can buy cars. They can buy cars. They can buy yachts. They can do all that stuff. That's how capitalism works. You sell yourself. You sell your body to the capital owners. You don't own any capital. No, the workers don't own any capital, okay? And what they will do is that and this is how it works, they extract as much value from your labor as they can and then keep it for themselves. What a union would do is actually give you more bargaining power so that you can bargain for your labor, okay, and allow the workers to set the value of their labor instead of allowing the company to make the decision by themselves of how much they are going to extract from your labor. So remember, you should be entitled to the largest share of your labor. The problem is that under this system, we're not. Now, the issue with Bessemer as well is that they couldn't match Amazon's ability to put out the anti-union propaganda. They just couldn't counter all of it out there. And the mandatory meetings were weekly, and at one point, every single day for a week straight. And as a result of those mandatory meetings, the propaganda, and how hard the company was pushing the workers, they felt like they couldn't speak out. In fact, one worker had said union support inside the warehouse was very much a quiet thing due to fear. I don't think people even talk about it, another worker said. And the lack of open conversation, of course, makes it appear to the other workers that nobody's really interested in the union. And so that has a negative effect. That has a depressive effect. And so that doesn't help either. In reality, of course, a lot of people were in favor of unionization, but it turns out they were afraid of retaliation. There was a climate of fear here. And the union itself made a strategic decision into keeping this on the down low because they were concerned about retaliation, which absolutely happened. Now, in a post-mortem on the election in The Nation, longtime organizer and writer Jane McAlevey, pointed to a hush-hush support as a death knell for the campaign. Some workers, however, did push back in captive audience meetings. 3 workers told Jameson they were private about their union support, but felt compelled to speak out against misinformation in the group meetings. One worker said he was asked to stay behind, and he refused. Good, because there was no reason that you would have to stay. So a misstep by the union, of course, was trying to keep it down low, which ended up depressing their support. But again, the other thing is that they were just outgunned massively. And these companies understand that they have so much power, so many tools at their disposal to go and crush unionization efforts. In fact, Jameson cites studies that have shown that anti-union campaigns are incredibly effective and can tip election results. In fact, in a 2009 analysis of union elections, Cornell labor researcher Kate Bronfenbrenner found that unions only won elections about 47% of the time when employers held these captive audience meetings, compared to 73% of the time, which they didn't. The anti-union literature, videos, and emails also appeared to chip away at the union win rate as well. So that's something that the NLRB and Congress, they really need to look into. These captive audience meetings are absolutely ridiculous. You shouldn't have to force people to go to anti-union meetings. This should be optional. It should not be mandatory. So this just shows that there's a huge power imbalance at work when it comes to this. And ironically, this is why they need the union in the first place, because of that power imbalance. One person, longtime labor organizer Gene Bruskin, called this discrepancy between the union's influence and the company's, quote, overwhelming, and explained that what they don't understand is the company has access to the workers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It has enormous influence over their lives. They can threaten, they can give raises, they can demote, they cannot grant favors. Every worker knows that. And another thing that Amazon had used for their influence is when the union effort was starting to get well known, you had company executives and supervisors that have suddenly did a bit of an attitude change. So now supervisors, for example, became much more solicitous to employees' concerns. One worker said he saw a dramatic change among the monitors who enforced social distancing in the break room. Quote, they used to yell at people. As soon as it was clear we're going to vote on the union, it was all smiles. Hey, how are you? We're here to help. Please stay 6 feet apart. Please and thank you. He even said that they started putting out candy for their employees. We're just going to buy you off with candy. Ridiculous. I'm going to bet that now that the union vote is over, these same people turn back to being assholes to workers. Because there's nothing stopping them. But this is an example of how this imbalance ends up in the workplace. Only when you're able to curb some of that imbalance does a unionization effort be successful. But how do you do that? That's the question. Before I get to that, there's another issue here, at least when it comes to the Bessemer warehouse. It appears that compared to other places in the region, the Amazon warehouse actually paid more. Wages at the Bessemer warehouse start at $15.30 an hour. Now remember, this is partly thanks to Bernie Sanders, who won a concession from Amazon, getting them to raise their wages to $15 an hour. So thanks to Bernie Sanders. But still, the union's stronger supporters do believe the warehouse needs to pay more, and I agree with that. And while Amazon pay actually is below that of other blue-collar jobs in the area, it's actually a lot better than places like Walmart and McDonald's. So if you're coming in from fast food to an Amazon warehouse, you're going from $7.25 an hour to $15.30, then you're going to be like, why would I need a union? I'm getting paid amazingly. Hey, I'm not saying that's right, but I'm saying that that's the mindset of some of these people. One worker said this: Amazon does pay better than other people. If you weren't working there, you might be working at Walmart for $11 an hour. And so understand that this is how low wages, end up hurting unionization. And so this is that race to the bottom. And even a place that is as evil as Amazon, as terrible as Amazon, who doesn't pay their people the way that they should, because honestly, people should be making about $23 an hour if wages had kept up with inflation and productivity. Nonetheless, especially since we're more productive than we've ever been as a society. But nonetheless, these depressed wages from these other companies that aren't necessarily competitors still depress the wages in the area so much that with Amazon paying barely a living wage, still looks pretty good to people. So that's a big problem, okay? Now, if other companies were forced to pay that wage, for example, had we had a $15 minimum wage in the last COVID bill, then these companies, then Amazon, would be either forced to raise its wage, or they end up getting a union, in which, of course, they would end up raising the wages in contract with that union. So those are the tactics that Amazon used that were very successful. And, of course, there are also allegations of dirty tricks. For example, Amazon might have broken the law by having a mailbox on warehouse property when the election began. You don't do that. The Labor Board rejected Amazon's request for ballot drop boxes on site, but Amazon decided to use the post office to place a mailbox on its campus, according to emails the union obtained and the Washington Post had published. So you're not able to do that. But the post office went along with it. Not good. Other possible illegal tactics included Amazon hiring private detectives that were known for union busting. These detectives would spy on their workers in private Facebook groups, tracking unionization risk with heat map tools in efforts to thwart organizing efforts before they gained momentum. Amazon also illegally fired multiple employees last year who organized demonstrations to shed light on what the employees said were unsafe and bad working conditions. So, what can be done? Well, for one, we need labor laws in this country. I mean, we really, really do. We're in desperate need of these labor laws. In fact, according to Business Insider, under current U.S. labor law, Companies have lots of tools at their disposal to try and prevent employees from unionization. From forcing them to listen to anti-union messaging in these captive audience meetings, which Amazon used, to having significant say over which employees are eligible to unionize in the first place. So if you only allow a certain subsection of your workforce to be able to unionize, you're not going to get that worker solidarity. Even when companies violate these laws, by the way, the NLRB, which oversees union elections, lacks power to do anything, to issue fines. So there's no incentive for companies to not break the law. If you have no laws, or if you can't enforce the laws, then the companies are going to break the laws. They don't care. They really don't care. So now one way to help is to have Congress pass the PRO Act. That's a good piece of legislation. Without that, companies will still have these massive advantages, but not ones that, of course, can't be beaten without more time or organization. And so I guess this is the main thing to push back against this. Start your organization early, right? Get people involved. I wish bigger names had Bernie Sanders actually gotten into this union fight before, earlier. Had Joe Biden actually put out positive statements about the unionization effort earlier, before the voting had begun, maybe that would have made a difference. So we got to really jump on this fast, because, again, that anti-union propaganda, they are there. They've got access to the workers 24/7. Organization has to start quickly, and it has to start in a big way, and it has to get that national attention, and it has to get it fast. Aside from that, I mean, not giving up. That's the biggest part, is to continue to try to organize. Even if you have a defeat, you organize. You have to organize. Because, and interestingly enough, this report does help labor, because now we see what they can do. Now we know the kind of tactics to expect from these companies, and we can formulate plans on how to counter those tactics and see what, where this union went wrong in their organizational attempt, and where we can correct. And so that's important. But there is a negative effect to this loss as well. And that's knowing how many tools the companies have, and that workers right now, as a result of Congress, still don't have really anyone to back them up. Not yet. And that creates really an air of hopelessness. In fact, one worker who supported the union but expected a loss, she actually now finds Amazon more intimidating than she did 6 months ago. She said, quote, "They've learned how to crush a real unionization effort." So, look, I know it's easy to say for me, but this has to keep making people fight harder. Just because the companies have these tactics does not mean unionization cannot win. But I think right now the most important thing to do is to start to get out the information to people. Okay? People need to know what a union actually is, what they do. And that, of course, goes a long way to counter that, anti-union propaganda that comes from these companies. You cannot give up, though, and you have to continue to spread that message, and you have to reach people, working class people, to combat the lies. So I'm hoping that the high profile nature of this fight that has just happened, and Amazon basically showing their hand, will start efforts to unionize in other places. Unions are starting to gain popularity again, because people are starting to understand that these companies are absolutely out of control. So we've got to continue to fight. People have to continue to organize to try to, do what they can, no matter what kind of dirty tactics that they use, We cannot give up the fight. All right. That's all I got today. Thank you for going around the nation and me. Please like and share the stream if you haven't already. No live show tomorrow. I'm going to go and get my COVID shot. So I'll be doing that tomorrow. So that's going to be great. So get my COVID shot. And then we'll be back on Thursday. So thank you all. Like and share the stream, please. I love you all, and we'll see you on Thursday. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation. We'll see you all later.
There are some whores in this house. Wet ass P-word.
Amazing. Why? Oh, you're getting nervous, man.
Oh, man, I'm sorry. Please clap.
Big, massive dumps.
They're kicking me out the door. They're kicking me out the door.